And you are looking at a live picture of Baghdad. It is 12:02 p.m., just afternoon in Baghdad. A hazy day there, 4 a.m. here in the United States. Good morning, everyone. I'm Anderson Cooper, joined by Carol Costello from Atlanta. Just a short while ago, we carried a speech by Iraqi President Saddam Hussein. Now, the Iraqi leader appeared on Iraqi television in his military uniform. It was pretty much a pep talk for Iraqis fighting forces as well as civilians. Take a look.
The heroic deeds that is being demonstrated by our great heroes today, we have always responded, even when we were asked to do things that they were illegitimate. So the sanctions and the blockade on our nation would be lifted. And after they run out of excuses and pretexts, the invaders came to reveal their true colors and showing their real intention, their evil intentions, which was not surprising to us.
That statement was made about an hour and 4 minutes ago by Iraqi President Saddam Hussein. Now, the leader named specific members of the Iraqi military and praised the troops for causing the enemy to suffer. It was not clear whether the speech was live or recorded. Obviously, a lot of people will be looking into that in the coming hours. Karen?
Yeah, we want to look into that right now, because Saddam Hussein looked a lot better than he did the last time he released something on Iraqi television. I want to toss to Chris Plant now at the Pentagon with some reaction to that. We have a graphic to put up just showing a comparison between the two appearances. The one on the left you're going to see is from last Thursday, and you know, Saddam looked, well, he didn't look well. He had those thick glasses on and his mustache was gray and he had the hat on, and for a time no one could tell if it was really him. You're seeing on the right Saddam Hussein, who just spoke about an hour and 4 minutes ago. Chris, your reaction to this, the Pentagon's reaction to this?
Well, no official reaction at this point, but I can assure you that Defense Department officials and U.S. intelligence officials watching the speech with great interest. People here in the Pentagon and up the river at the CIA will no doubt go through the same process that they went through last time and that they typically go through in situations like this, and that is to put the tape through various voice recognition programs to detect voice patterns and so on. There are also photographic matching techniques that they use. Generating the photo through a computer and pinpointing different parts of the face, facial features, and comparing them to previous photographs known to be Saddam Hussein. Because he has a number of doubles, he uses people that look very much like him to, pardon me, to stand in for him under certain circumstances. They will go through this process to see whether they can determine whether it was actually him. It certainly appeared to be him at first blush. It sounded like it was Saddam Hussein. He has a fairly distinctive voice. Those who are familiar with his voice patterns say that they can pick it up fairly easily. But even in the last tape that surfaced of President Hussein, they went to great lengths, including reports that Defense Department intelligence people had a former mistress of Saddam Hussein come in to identify or help them determine whether it was actually President Hussein on the last tape. There are a number of other things that they can look at too. While he did talk about, as Christian was saying, the fight going on at Qasr, which is in southern Iraq near the Kuwaiti border. This is an area where it is possible, not to read too much into what we heard in the statements or to leap to any conclusions here, but it is certainly possible that with Allied forces massed across the border in Kuwait, that you could know ahead of time that there would be a fight for the town of Qasr, that it is a strategic area where there are oil facilities and near the oil fields in southern Iraq. Clearly there would be a fight there if they were planning for one, if the Iraqis were planning for one, knowing where the coalition forces were. Also, President Hussein referenced the 51st Mechanized Regiment and praising them. There are reports, there have been substantiated reports that the 51st was one of the first units, Iraqi units, to surrender early on in this process. And if he is praising them for their fighting when they're not fighting, that's curious. Carol.
Chris, we're going to wrap you up now because we have breaking news to tell folks about. Thank you, Chris Plant, live from the Pentagon. Anderson?
And Chris, we want you to stand by because we might want to get your reaction to this news. This is coming off of Iraqi TV. We've just received it in the last several moments, bringing to you video apparently showing a U.S. Apache Longbow helicopter, apparently a downed U.S. Apache Longbow helicopter. It shows apparently the markings of the 1st Air Cavalry. We're getting all of this again off Iraqi TV. It was found in Karbala, 45 miles south of Baghdad. We're seeing on the screen 50 miles south of Baghdad, so around 45, 50 miles. Again, this is video imagery from Iraqi television. Appears to show an Apache Longbow helicopter. And you're seeing, I guess, the Iraqi television reporter with interviewing someone on the scene. The helicopter there in the background seems to have landed. Doesn't look, it's not on its side or anything, so it seems to have landed at least upright. We have Chris Plant, as I said, standing by at the Pentagon. Chris, I know this is information just coming in. Your reaction as you see the pictures?
Well, it certainly appears to be an Apache Longbow helicopter, and there's only one place you can find those, and that's the United States Army. If this is genuine tape, and again, it certainly appears to be, these have not been sold to any other countries. They would be very hard to fake, and it does appear that that helicopter was put down in a field. Conjecture only at this point, but the logical conclusion to come to would be that the Apache suffered some sort of a mechanical problem and was forced to land. Apparently, and yes.
Yeah, just to put this in context, and again, we really have no information about this particular helicopter. We are just seeing this as we are broadcasting it from Iraqi television. But just to give a sense, earlier in the morning, we have heard from Carl Penholt, who was with the U.S. Army's 11th Helicopter Attack Force, which came under some heavy fire. It was an Apache unit that went up apparently against the 2nd Armored Brigade of the Medina Division, the elite forces, part of the Republican Guard. Chris, keep standing by. We have Carl Penholt, who was in that attack. Carl, we are seeing pictures of a Apache helicopter, a Longbow helicopter, sitting in a field of grass, apparently about 45 to 50 miles south of Baghdad. I know you have not seen the pictures, but what can you tell us about from where you are?
Well, the helicopters that left for the mission overnight, a mission that lasted 3 hours, many of them returned. In fact, nearly all of them returned with harrowing stories about how they'd received a heavy barrage of anti-aircraft fire. Many of the pilots this morning were telling me and pointing out the impact of bullets on their aircraft, between 50 and 20 bullet holes in each, some small caliber, some larger caliber, and some even impacted by rocket-propelled grenades. The helicopter that you refer to on the ground there, we have no specific knowledge of that at this time. Also under the ground rules that we have signed for the embeds with the U.S. military, if any operation of this type were going on to search for pilots, we wouldn't be able to comment on it anyway. We wouldn't have information on that.
Understand, Carl, and absolutely not even asking you that. Talk a little bit about the operation which you witnessed. You were in a command and control helicopter, I understand a Black Hawk helicopter, while this operation was taking place. Previously, you described the pilots as somewhat dazed, somewhat stunned in reaction to the encounter that they have. Characterize for us, if you will, what went down several hours ago.
Yes, well, I was flying on a Black Hawk helicopter, the command and control helicopter that flew in behind the first company of helicopters that went to the attack site. The attack site is south of Baghdad, on the southern approaches to Baghdad, just on the edge of the city of Karbala and just north of the city of Al-Hilal. It's a corridor between two rivers, a very built-up area, an urban area. As we approached that area, the Black Hawk held in an approaching pattern. The U.S. Army helicopters continued, but in the distance I could see flashes of light going up. The pilots, who were obviously riding in the front of the Black Hawk, told me those were very intense flashes, a curtain of light goes to the barrage of anti-aircraft fire. This morning, talking to pilots after their return to the mission, they've described the situation as a hornet's nest. They say that gunfire was not only coming from military emplacements in the area, but also from residential areas. They believe that civilians may have been firing on them also, or military emplacements in civilian areas. Whatever happened in that situation, the majority of the U.S. Army Apache helicopters weren't able to engage their intended targets. Those were the intended targets were T-72 tanks and artillery pieces of the Republican Guard. But as the situation worked out, then most of the pilots simply had to adopt a defensive posture and do their best to get themselves out of that situation alive.
Chris, and just so you know what viewers at home here are watching, again, we are looking at these pictures from Iraqi television, what appears to be a downed Apache helicopter, a longbow helicopter, down some 50 miles or so south of Baghdad. It has the markings, just looking from these pictures, and I'm not an expert on these markings, but apparently the markings of the 1st Air Cavalry, I'm told. We are seeing men with AK-47s, other less impressive weaponry sort of dancing around, obviously in front of cameras, which would assume to be from Iraqi TV, dressed somewhat irregularly, to say the least. We also sort of alarmingly saw 2 helmets that one assumes were taken from the helicopter. No word in this video on anything related to any pilots. So there's absolutely no information out there on no information from this video on the fate of any pilots who may have been in this craft. Chris Plant Chris Plant is standing by the Pentagon. Chris, I know this is just a developing situation, it's breaking news. You got anything to say right now?
Well, sure. Just a couple of observations, Anderson. From what we've seen of the videotape, and we've seen only one side of the helicopter, along with a front view, a little bit of the tail, no visible damage. Now, it's possible, of course, that some small ground fire could take down a helicopter like this. You've got these turbine engines aboard the helicopter, which, if hit by, and they are reinforced, but if hit in the wrong place, the right place, by gunfire, it can disable the engines. It doesn't appear that the helicopter is seriously shot up, certainly. And it also appears that it, as you observed, it didn't seem to suffer any substantial damage when hitting the ground, which would also indicate that it was a fairly soft landing, still carrying some of its air-to-ground missiles, those AGM missiles mounted on the racks on the side. I would, again, based on what we've seen, it would appear that it was probably a forced landing because of a mechanical problem. I would assume that if the Iraqi forces had taken the 2 crewmen into custody, that they would be making us aware of that at this point. They found the helmets on the scene there. It might be an indication of the fact that the 2 crewmen survived the hard landing. They may be on the run on the ground, and quite honestly, if search and rescue operations have been successful in already scooping up those 2 crewmen, generally there's a lag time in announcing that the search and rescue operation was conducted. Certainly, if it's underway, they do not acknowledge it. But once the crewmen are scooped up, they would bring them back to a base in Kuwait before making any announcement on their rescue. Furthermore, if I could just add one more thing quickly, it is sort of part of the U.S. pattern when hardware like this falls into the hands of an enemy to come in and bomb it from the air and destroy it, so that the technology does not fall into any enemy hands. Anderson? And
again, Chris, as you mentioned, judging from this video, we have absolutely no information about any pilots who may or may not have been there, and it looks like, again, like a very soft landing. And the pictures you see of the people sort of dancing in front of the lens, being whipped up by the what appears to be the reporter, the man with the microphone there, sort of encouraging the people to dance in front of the cameras. And should just point out, the Apache, often described as the most lethal in the fleet, fires Hellfires.
It's the state-of-the-art helicopter, actually attack helicopter in the U.S. military at this point. It's the most advanced in the Army inventory, and it is much more modern than the Marine Corps equivalent, which is the AH-1W, the Super Cobra. This helicopter, much more advanced, a lot of advanced technology, and for that reason, it may be a very dangerous place to be standing right now, quite honestly.
And as Carol and I sit here watching these pictures, the thing that jumps out at me in just reading my notes about the Apache, apparently it's got a radar system on board. It can pick up hundreds of targets in less than a second, which is just extraordinary when you think about it.
And it identifies friendly helicopters, separates those out from enemy combatants. It also links to, it's capable of linking to vehicles on the ground, creating a digital battlefield that they can view through screens in the cockpit, and it tells them which vehicles are friendly and which are enemy vehicles. Very advanced systems in this helicopter.
You know, Chris, I was just curious as to what the official word was from the Pentagon about how many coalition aircraft are missing.
Missing at this point, we weren't aware of this one, and I'm not aware of any coalition aircraft at this point that are listed as missing right now. This clearly is one that falls under that heading. But again, while search and rescue operations are underway, combat search and rescue operations are underway. That is a Special Forces mission. Could be Army, Special Forces, Air Force, Special Forces. Air Force has very capable combat search and rescue teams. Again, very advanced helicopters and very specific procedures.